Hey, y'all. Hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Mindset Monday, where we take the best teachings on mindset, motivation, and leadership and apply them to your life. This helps you get past the past and grow forward into abundance. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about a strategy for growing your business. And today's success strategy is that you are the leader. You're the leader. So if I ask, okay, what's your title? You're the leader. You are the chief decision maker. That's what you are in your business. You are the chief decision maker. You're that in your business. You are that in your life. So you should not add the burden of consequences onto the people who shouldn't be carrying it. In other words, if you're the leader, and we know that there's a weight, John Maxwell talks about the weight of the leader. There is a weight that a leader carries, right? And there is a burden because there's consequences to being the leader and making decisions, right? I found that in my life when I was in a poor first marriage. I did not expect that when I became divorced that I would feel the burden of being the spiritual and physical head of the household because I was already doing everything. I didn't know that there was another burden there. And for me, there was another burden there because now I was the leader. And in our businesses and in our the corporation called You Incorporated, you are the leader, okay? And so we don't take that burden and put it on people who didn't sign up for the job, people who didn't have the responsibility of the job, who have no authority, and who don't reap any benefits of being able to do the job. So if we look on the relationship status, we see this a lot for those of us who have been or currently are single moms. A lot of times we put a lot of leadership burden on our children, especially our firstborns, and they didn't sign up for that. They didn't sign up to be the other parent. They didn't sign up to be the surrogate parent. They signed up to be our kid. And honestly, they didn't even sign up for that, right? Like they got stuck with us. This is not a parenting class today. This is a success strategies for business. We're talking about mindset today. And but these are really also success strategies for life. And so, you think about how many of us were forced to grow up too soon because mom had to work, 3 jobs, or dad wasn't there, so we became mom and dad to our siblings, right? And then we vow that we're never going to do that again. But how'd that really work out for you, huh? Yeah. So a manager's role in your business, if you have somebody that is helping you to manage your business, they execute the plan, right? You got cross leaders whose jobs are to share and put into the leadership and decision making conversation all the facts and the feedback that gets evaluated, right? The insights from their perspective. Now that's their role. They input into the big leadership conversation, but then if you're the leader, you have to make the decision. And I'm going to tell you right now, you got to make it quickly. There's 13 principles of success defined by Napoleon Hill. And he said that after studying the lives of 25,000 people, that he came to the conclusion that successful people had a habit around making decisions. They make decisions very quickly and seldom, if ever, change their minds. That quick decision making builds confidence in you, and firm decision making builds trust. Slow decision making, guess what that builds? Insecurity. And weak decision making, now that builds neurosis. So you're the leader. Your role is to make decisions. You carry the burden of those consequences just as you reap the rewards of those decisions. So if you make the right decisions and you're the leader and the company grows, well, you probably get a bigger bonus than everybody else, right? So you should be carrying these burdens. You should be carrying the consequences. You should be carrying the burdens. Don't pass that on to the people. It's not fair to pile the responsibility onto your team. And we see this all the time, pit the team members against one another by saying, well, majority's going to rule. Okay, so here's the decision. We're going to make a group decision. Your most important task as the entrepreneur, as the leader, is to be the executive decision maker. So, yes, have the debates, have the masterminding, have the brainstorming, have the strategy meetings, have the failure meetings where ideas are shared, what worked, what didn't work. But once all the debate is over and the meeting's end and it comes time for decision making, now your team needs one point of decision.
And what they need is they need clarity and they need it fast. It builds confidence and they need it to be steady and firm. So, in other words, it can't be wishy washy. You can't go back and forth on your decisions. Napoleon Hill, I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding Napoleon Hill. I had a friend who wrote a really good article about that. If you're interested in learning about how his life didn't necessarily match up to what he wrote, I am more than happy to share that with you. In fact, I might just even post it in the show notes if I remember about it. But the principles that he taught, they are very good principles. Okay. So he says that successful people make decisions. They make them very quickly. They seldom, if ever, go back and change those decisions. So, in other words, they say, we go in this way. And if the conditions and circumstances change, they'll adapt. But they're not going back to the point of decision to say, well, should we? No. We've made a decision. This is the way we're going. That's what builds trust. So your team knows they can trust your word. And then there's depth and meaning to when you give your word. So this may seem contrary to the way that our population, our American culture works, but we're not talking about giving everybody a vote. This is not majority rules here. And I used to do this as a leader, and now I realize that's one of the worst things you can say is, you know what, everybody make up your own little decision, make a decision, make a decision, you make a decision, you make a decision, we'll talk about it and a majority wins. Don't do that. Don't give them a vote or give them a decision, because what you're really doing when you're giving a vote and you're like, oh, well, we're going to take a vote, you can opt in or opt out, it's almost like it's selective, especially when it's a big kind of decision. And it's like, oh, we won't hold it against you, whatever you decide. Well, I have found in my admittedly, short experience on this world. I mean, I've lived a little longer than some, but not as long as others. It pits people against each other. And so if we're going to take the vote and we're going to make these significant decisions of the vote, then somebody is on the side of the vote and somebody is on the other side of the loss. Okay? That does not create unity. That actually pulls people apart. So then if you say, hold on, this is going to be the decision, boom, put the flag in the ground. This is going to be the position. Then people can say, I buy onto that decision based on the vision. I buy in or I buy out. And if they buy in, they stay. And if they buy out, then they opt out, they get out. Okay. And we saw that happen. We saw that happen when Ford was rebuilt. Someone named Malawi. Oh, I hope I got his name right. I hope I spelled his name right. That's how he rebuilt Ford. He was like, you know what? You don't have to agree. You can leave. You can leave if you want to. It's okay. But this is the decision I made. We're going this way. And come along or don't come along. But if you're gonna come along, you're not just gonna come along. You're gonna come along in the spirit in which we're all moving. This is the decision. You're going to get behind the decision or not, and that's the way to go. So there's a balance to this as well, okay? And so I am at the point in my business where I have team leaders that we're starting to grow the business and we're starting to move out of this person's doing this and this person's doing that. And people have the authority that they need to execute what they need to execute. And I haven't you, especially if you've been in a military background, right? It's like torture to give somebody responsibility without authority, right? It's nothing worse than when you're the leader of a project or maybe you're the leader of a division and you're tasked with responsibility of the team, of that division, and you get all these responsibilities, but then you aren't given the full authority to make the decisions. And again, just like with the parenting I said earlier, we say, we vow, we ain't never going to do that. We are not going to turn it to my mom, not going to turn it to my dad. But guess what we do when we become the leader? We do the exact same thing. They got to run to this person or that person. They got to go to the top person. They got to go here. They got to go there. They need 4 or 5 signatures. Ask for a final decision because they don't have the authority to make a decision. They got all the burden of responsibility, but they lack custody and control. And so what really happens is they haven't got the tools to be able to deliver. And some of you listening to me today, you have had this experience where you have brought in people. You have brought in people to help you grow your business so you can delegate, but you didn't really delegate. You said, here you go, pulled it back. Here you go, pulled it back. Here's your responsibility, pulled back the authority. And so it's like my mentor Roddy said. One of my mentors, Roddy Galbraith, really helped me learn how to speak. For those of you who haven't heard the story, you can get with me. He's very good at helping people learn how to speak. Well, back when he was still in corporate England, he called it death by PA. Wait, no, PA syndrome. PA syndrome. Wait, basically, you got the senior executives of the bank. They got 50,000 people around the world earning millions and millions of dollars a year. They're so busy, they're traveling around. They put everything through their PA, personal assistant, right? So you got this PA. Some of these PAs probably earning six figures, but a lot of times it's really kind of in the mid five figures, 60,000 or something. And they're not really as aware as the CEO running this 20, $30 million division, within the organization, or division head. And so what happens is the creative ability of the 150 people in the decision making is gone through one person who not only isn't all that interested because they're hardly being paid enough to be that interested, but they hardly understand what's really going on. And it's really, really ridiculous when you think about it, but it goes on in big organizations all the time. And it happens in small organizations too, but especially in bigger organizations, because there's whole relentless politicking that goes on because people are all worried about their career, and it's inefficient. And I even saw that in the military. Like in the military, we knew that you had to make a relationship with the gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper did know a lot of the ins and outs and the organizational personal stuff that's going on, the opinions of the people involved. Now that, oh my goodness, you want to make sure, and I guess in England they call it the PA. You want to make sure those people are on your side, right? But at the same time, when I became one of those people, oh, I thought I had the keys to the kingdom. But what I discovered is I understood what was happening in the people side, and I was able to advise the general what was going on the people side. But one of the things I did not always understand, because I wasn't always in the meetings, I didn't always understand the strategic side of growing the organization. And while the military isn't a profit driven organization like I hope your business is, it's important to understand is that when we funnel all of these important decisions through a gatekeeper who is not necessarily invested, the teams aren't playing to win. They start playing not to lose. And there's a difference. Are you playing to win, or are you playing to cover your backside? No financial advisor ever got fired for buying IBM out of all the other options that are available, because it's risky, right? It's risky to buy something else, but IBM's pretty safe. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens after the pandemic shakes out, and everybody else has gotten in the game, and all the electronics are, a lot of companies are folding right now. But you understand the point that I'm making, right? Yeah, but last month, one of my doctoral assignments was on the reluctance of financial advisors to call out companies who have taken on risky processes that really should devalue the stock, but nobody wants to take the risk of upsetting the establishment. So, amongst the financial planner field, you got people that don't ever want to take a lot of risk, because even though they know that their clients might have a high risk tolerance, nobody wants to be the guy or gal that loses money, right? And then nobody also wants to be the one to say, hey, this or that. I'm purposely not naming companies because I don't want you to think I got some inside information. But this company that's been a blue chip stock all this time, they've got some wonky processes going on. This one's got a really poor succession plan, and we don't know how they're going to pull out. And the new CEO's doing this, and that, and that. Right? Nobody wants to be the one to call them out. When I was stationed at Tinker Air Force Base at the Air Logistics Center, I was in charge of Air Force Oil Analysis Program. Really cool program. But the overall ALC did preventative maintenance on our aircraft like the B 52, the B 1, KC 135, that's a tanker. And we had issues with the engineers who did the designing versus the trades on the floor who actually did the tearing apart and putting back together after parts were inspected and refurbished. So the engineers, they would design stuff that was really difficult to maintain, but the tradesmen weren't given extra time to do their job. Everybody was frustrated. So our boss, just before I arrived at the program, created this initiative where all the new engineers or program leaders had to spend a week on the floor learning how to put the aircraft together. I gotta admit, it was one of the most fun weeks I ever had in the Air Force to this day, y'all. My eyes came open, y'all, but we still had these issues. So the next time it came to modify a certain part, we brought the floor supervisor into the planning process early, and he was going around and around with the engineer about how they were going to actually be able to maintain what the engineer was proposing. And finally, exasperated, the tech grabs this pneumatic wrench, and he's like, "Here, you show me how to do it." You show me how to physically do what you want me to do, and then I'll have my team do it. Well, the engineer had never held one of those things before. They're not the cute little air hoses you got at Home Depot, you know? So, needless to say, that panel had a different design when it finally came out. But as leaders, how often are we doing this to our folks? We don't give clear communication, or worse, because we haven't learned how to be decisive, take action, make the decision, and communicate to our people, as well as provide them a path to communicate with us. Now we take on everything because it's just faster or easier to do it myself. You know what they say? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go together. Another mentor of mine, former mentor of mine, has a story he used to tell of when he owned a commercial cleaning company. He was totally frustrated one month because all of a sudden he had a rash of complaints that the cleaning wasn't thorough enough. And he goes down to this one bank that's been complaining, and sure enough, he gets to the counter where the teller booth was, and there were little ink and pencil marks all over the marble or formica or whatever it was, right? And the teller says, the bank manager says, see, they didn't clean it. And the employee was like, I did clean it. I cleaned it with what you gave me. Here, I use this chemical. They'd spray the chemical, wipe it down. See, I cleaned it. It just doesn't come off. So here was this person who had all the responsibility of cleaning this $100,000 account. Now, he also had working for him, in addition to the cleaning team, he had an office manager named Terry. And if a cleaner wanted a new mop head for the mop, they would go in and ask Terry. And Terry would say, you get a new mop head once a week, so you're going to have to wait till Wednesday. So, in other words, if it was Monday, these go mop all the offices Monday and Tuesday with a dirty mop. And with these experiences, this mentor of mine realized that he didn't empower his team to make the decisions they needed to make to do a good job. Now, you've heard me talk about him before because this particular business owner is why he started having failure meetings. That's why I talked about failure meetings. And he changed things up. So, at the beginning of every month, everybody got $100 of petty cash to buy whatever they needed. And what was introduced to his company was this chemical called Goof Off. He hadn't heard of it before. It's like a little solvent cleaner, right? Like a little yellow bottle. It really removes everything. We used it a lot at our church when we had our church in the mall. A drop of that, it's gone, right? It's like $2.99 a bottle. Some of his crew knew about it, but he didn't have a process for them to bring that idea forward. He had a process that actually prevented them from being able to make decisions that ultimately profited his business. So what was happening was, in the spirit of control and saving costs, he was killing creativity. He started those failure idea meetings. He put people in charge of their routes. This route does $250,000. It generates this amount of money. You get this much of the profit. These are your costs. This is your staff. Gave them authority. Hire, fire, buy. Make the decisions. You're either going to trust your people or not trust them. You're either going to equip them or not equip them. But to give somebody the burden of responsibility and the burden of decision making and the burden of consequence without the authority, that's ridiculous, okay? And on one level, it appears to make sense that you would have cost control mechanisms in place, but it needs to be balanced with what you're talking it needs to be balanced with what you're talking about, the ability of people to make decisions that are sensible, not stick with something that somebody else made that was silly. So I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, look at the decision making process in your company. I know some of you out there, the decision making process in your company is basically you. So this doesn't really seem to apply yet. But these are questions you got to ask now, because as your business grows, sometimes growth happens so fast, you don't have time to put processes and procedures in place. And then you have all this growth, and then things begin to implode. Anybody else ever seen that happen? Right? So I want you to think about it. Those of you who think, even those of you who don't have big companies right now, but especially those of you who do have employees, and especially if you're large enough to have divisions, right? If somebody wanted to buy something new, if they wanted to spend $1,000 in your company, if they wanted to hire, fire, or make the decision, what would be the process? Does the decision-making process you have foster trust? Does it allow the team to move at the speed of idea? Does it allow them to move at the speed of trust? Does it foster the best ideas? Does your process foster innovation? Does it foster clarity? Does it foster clarity about who's in charge? Remember, if we're all taking a vote, who's in charge? The vote's in charge. The majority's in the charge. Well, that's how you end up with things like Brexit. That's also how you end up with things where people have concerns and ideas and they never bring them up because nobody wants to be on the wrong side of the vote. But you are the leader. It's time for you to lead. It's time for you to make sure that everybody on your team is empowered with the authority to make things happen and get it done. This happens even in your family, especially as parents, especially those of us who are professional women trying to get things done, or even those of us who stay at home now. I stay at home. I was professional workplace for 23 years and I'm at home now. It's the same principle. You are the leader. Now, look, somebody else may think they're the leader of your household, but you're the leader of your household. All the guys are like, what? And it really boils down to individual expression. A person feels most empowered when they have care, custody, and control over their outcomes, and when they have care, custody, and control over the process that created those outcomes. And so, whether it's your business, whether it's your personal life, or whether it's your family, when you lack care, when somebody lacks care, when the people who are looking up to you lack care, custody, and control over the process that creates those things, then what they need most is quick, clear, consistent, decisive leader. And some of us, we have not been quick, clear, consistent, and decisive leaders in our own lives. We have not been quick, clear, consistent, and decisive leaders in the lives of our children and the lives of our husbands and our wives. We have certainly not then been quick, consistent, clear, decisive leaders in our businesses. In fact, we've done the mistake that I think I've made in the past years: let everything build up and hire somebody to take care of it all, but then don't empower them to take care of it. And then you have Facebook group that people have been trying to get into for 12 weeks. Yes, you're talking to the lady who just spent her whole afternoon admitting people into the Building Wealth Together group because it had taken so long and I did not empower people the way I thought I had. All right. So this is not the pot calling the kettle black here, but I am trying to encourage you to do what you've got to do so that not only you feel empowered, so not only do you live an empowered life, not only are you now running an empowered business and building an empowered business, it also comes as feeling as that you have care, custody, and control over the results of your life and the process to create those results. You're the leader. Now, there's times in our life when we're not the decision maker. Okay, that's fine. Well, then, in order for me to be empowered as an employee or as a staff person or as part of the team, then the way I feel empowered when I'm not the leader is knowing that my leader is going to make a clear, consistent decision and that my leader is not going to make decisions that pit me against each other. And like I've been saying this entire time, this isn't just for companies. When you're a solopreneur and you're leading yourself, you can do that wrong too. Ask me how I know. You could slow play yourself in decision making and you could think, well, the only person I'm hurting is myself, right? Well, you know what? The highest form of leadership is self leadership. Can you give yourself a command and actually follow it? Or has every morning been the same old, tomorrow I'm going to pray, study, work out, and make 10 business calls that you haven't been doing? Oh, I'm only hurting myself. You're hurting all the people who are counting on you to show up. You are hurting the people who don't even know that you're the answer to their problem, and they're not gonna know because you rolled over and hit snooze because you didn't get the self care yesterday that you needed to get. And after a while, you tell yourself you're gonna do XYZ, but what you've really told your subconscious over the last month, last year, last couple of years is that it can't trust you because you slow play yourself in making decisions. And the minute you add one more person to the team, it's game on. But guess what? They don't just make all the decisions. Your job is to make the decisions and make them quickly. To quickly make the decisions in harmony with what you claim you value and to empower other people to do the same. You can't just start that when you take on team members. You got to start with doing it now with yourself. Now, if what I'm saying here is really speaking to you, I want to encourage you to register for our Think and Grow Rich class that's coming up. It's really going to dig into some of these decision-making processes that we have in our life. Okay? You can use code VETFAIR for a generous 50% discount that's going to save you a significant amount on the class. And right now, before we launch the class, is the cheapest it will ever be. I'm telling you right now, these principles that we're going to cover, whether or not you agree with Napoleon Hill, because I know there's a lot of things in that book I do not agree with, but the reflective questions, the process of being persistent, the understanding how we make decisions and what it is that impedes us from making quick and valuable decisions and what keeps us tied up and bound, all of that together is going to help you be more comfortable with being the leader. I hope you'll join me in the Think and Grow Rich class. You can find it at jjclink.com/TAGR for Think and Grow Rich. That's jjclink.com/TAGR. Now, I do want to let you know, if you are a previous purchaser of Think and Grow Rich, you'll note that every year we've basically used the same course platform and we have just added the new lessons on top of the old ones. So when you register, you've gotten all the old goodness. And the price kept going up year after year because of that, right? Looks like you've got like 3 or 4 years of Think and Grow Rich all in the same portal right now. And so what I've decided to do is I wanted to bring the cost down. A lot of people are hurting from the pandemic, and I wanted to make sure that people who are in the process of recovering from all the devastation financially over the last 2 years that a lot of people have had, or those who had the pandemic businesses that were super booming but are starting to crash now. I wanted to make this content accessible for everybody. So we're going to have a new price structure. It's still going to be the same construct of the cheapest price you're going to pay is the super early bird price. Then you'll get to pay another price if you jump in while we're still teaching the class. And then the highest price will be after the class is over and we lock down the recordings and everything, okay? Because the reason I do it that way is when you buy into it before I've even launched it, you're putting your trust in me and I want to reward that trust. Okay. And B, I also believe in rewarding people who take action. I really believe that the way that the Lord set up this world and the way that He's created this world is that people who take quick, decisive action are rewarded in life more than those who whiffle and waffle and miss out. I'm trying to encourage you to take a step today that's going to help you for the rest of your life. And again, you can do that at jjclink.com/TAGR. That's all I have for you today. Y'all take care and be blessed.
Love the podcast? Be sure to like, subscribe, and forward to 3 friends. You can ask a question or take a life-changing class at buildingwealthtogether.com. Now, go walk in abundance and leave a legacy.